We now call the meeting to order. In a moment, I'm going to ask everyone to please rise to salute the flag. After we salute the flag, please remain standing for a moment of silence for Sue McGinley, a long-serving and much-loved secretary at the Jackson Memorial High School, who passed away on Tuesday at home. Sue worked closely with students and staff for more than 20 years, and her energy, humor, and warmth will be sorely missed. We offer our deepest sympathy and support to Sue's family, but also her Memorial family. Thank you. This meeting is in compliance with the Open Public Meeting Law and has been duly advertised in the newspaper as an official meeting. Roll call.
Mrs. Gardella?
Yes.
Mr. McCarron?
Yes.
Mrs. Baracus?
Present.
Dr. Osmond?
Here.
Mrs. Rivera?
Present.
Mrs. Cass?
Present.
Mr. Palmieri?
Present. Ms. Gardella has a resolution to add to the agenda. Ms. Gardella?
Yes, I make a motion to add to the agenda under programs, a new number 14, which reads, I resolve that the board creates an advocacy and community outreach committee of the board comprised of Board of Education members, community members, parents, administrators, and teachers for the purpose of, among other things, enhancing communications on matters that affect our school community.
I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. I need a motion for approval of the agenda with addendums.
Motion. Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
This is just the approval of the minutes, correct?
The agenda.
Yes.
Mr. McCarron?
Yes.
Mrs. Baracus?
Yes.
Ms. Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
And Mr. Palmieri?
Yes. Tonight, before we go any further, I would just like to address something publicly that was brought up to several board members a couple weeks ago. And the question was, why did we reopen Ms. Permilli's contract when she still had 3 years existing on that contract? So I wanted to give everyone here tonight and whoever's watching a little bit of the why behind what we did. And to do that, we're going to have to go back to February of 2020. February of 2020, Mrs. Permilli assumed the role of superintendent for our district. And she came on board with over 20 years of experience in education and also as an administrator. And her whole life brought her to that moment, and she was excited with plans and goals that she wanted to turn the page and start a new chapter for the Jackson School District. And as we all know, a few weeks went by, and in March of 2020, COVID-19 swept the nation and the world, really. And the governor ordered schools to close, the president closed the country, and for 2 years, we had virtual learning. And just last year, we started seeing normalcy again, and students were back in the classroom, teachers were back in the classroom, and the board started to strategize as to what we would do and what does it look like to have a plan in place to mend that learning loss, that gap, that 2 years that our students lost due to the pandemic. So with that, we wanted stability. We wanted to have a superintendent that would be here long-term and one that would be able to navigate us through this time. We also felt that the 2 years of COVID was stolen from Mrs. Permilli. She didn't have that opportunity to really do as she wanted to see this district prosper and grow. So what we did was, a part of the strategy was to reopen up Mrs. Permilli's contract, and we wanted to re-sign her for 5 years, and which we did in November of 2022. It was at a public board meeting. Her benefits remain the same from 2020. We did increase her salary, as I'm sure you've all read, and we increased her salary because when we took stock of other school districts in similar size to the Jackson School District, such as Brick, Lakewood, and Toms River, we wanted to make sure that our superintendent was at the median income or median salary as those other superintendents. So we did increase her to make her more on the level with her peers. What we didn't want was what Toms River went through for well over a year and a half, where they were without a superintendent, and it is not easy to find and to secure a competent superintendent. And we have a great superintendent now with us for the next 5 years that is going to see us through in the future. I did read that Mrs. Permilli, her health benefits and her family's health benefits are absorbing thousands of dollars from the district. Let me be very clear, as Mrs. Permilli and her family is eligible for health benefits, Mrs. Permilli has opted out of health benefits. So this is actually saving the district thousands and thousands of dollars, not costing us thousands of dollars. So I just wanted to share a little bit of the why behind what we decided to do. Was made public. It was done last November, as I said, and we voted on it, and that's the reasoning behind it. So I hope this answers some of the questions out there. I think that this was the best decision for our students. So does this board, and I think we're in a good place with Mrs. Permilli at the helm. So thank you. At this time, I'm going to turn over the meeting to Mrs. Permilli for her superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Palmieri. So I'd like to begin my report this evening with expressing my sincere condolences to the McGinley family. Sue's loss is felt deeply. Her shining light in the halls of Memorial, High School, and across the district are going to be greatly missed. A wonderful student advocate, staff supporter, and I want to express our condolences and let everybody know how much she will greatly be missed. Next, I would like to continue with some high school information. Every board meeting, we have our two board reps here to speak about the wonderful things happening in our high schools. This evening, I would like to start with Jose from Liberty. If you could come to the podium.
Good evening, Superintendent, Board of Education members and guests. It is my pleasure to be back here again to fill you in on some of the noteworthy events happening at Liberty this past month. First off, our 8 elite players hosted a wonderful musical performance of Legally Blonde. They performed in front of packed audiences who were treated to the amazing talents of our theater students. To conclude their successful season, our cheer team became national champions when they won first place in the varsity all-girl division in Rhode Island. Their coach, Tara Rochelle, was also recognized for her exceptional contributions and was named Coach of the Year. Several winter sports teams held their banquets to celebrate their seasons. One of those teams was their girls' basketball team. One of the players honored there was Eri Broughton, who earned C-South second team honors by Shore Sportsnet. Eri also scored her 1,000th point this year. Additionally, Liberty hosted the Region 6 Wrestling Tournament, where 4 wrestlers earned the honor to compete in the state tournament in Atlantic City. Freshman Tokar Pacinco, junior Anthony Arce, and seniors Jake Lane and Luis Valente all placed in the region and went on to compete in AC. Speaking of success, we are proud to announce the students that have been accepted to Boys and Girls State, and they are Brayden Einhorn, Elisha Elias, Zachary Marmostain, Matthew O'Brien, Harrison Arnold, Sabrina Watts, Yana Roth, Helen Loaiza, Aixa Perez, Yana Ianza, Virginia Irianza, Danica Cisnetsky, and myself. This is a prestigious honor, and we know they will represent Liberty well. Some of our teams gave others a lot to celebrate by helping out in the community. The Jackson Liberty and Swim Team members contributed to a wonderful cause known as Stomp the Monster. This organization raises money for cancer patients and their families for their everyday needs. The swim team raised $2,360 overall. Great job, guys. The Inter Club continues to exercise their motto, service above self, by participating in a Blessing Bag Brigade packing event this past Saturday, where they donated over 800 items with the help of the Jackson Education Association. Several other clubs are raising money for scholarships and events. The class of 2025 will be having a St. Patrick's Day Dunkin' Donuts sale on Friday, March 17, and the Jackson Liberty Band is selling Krispy Kreme donuts and hosting a lawn egg fundraiser. Everyone is really getting into the spirit of this time of year. Our Spring Spirit Week is a huge success as students and staff are participating with great enthusiasm. The Student Council has another one planned at the end of the month as a way to kick off opening day for spring sports and gain momentum for the upcoming pep rally. We are very excited for the start of our new sports season this week and wish every single one of our teams best of luck this year. The sports team are not the only ones focused on winning competitions. Our Jackson Liberty Jazz Band had a great night at the Steinhardt HS Jazz Festival, where they received soloist, section, and outstanding musician awards. Moreover, our art department and academy worked hard to create a memorable event when the Jackson Academy of Arts hosted the Museum Night Art Show. We would like to congratulate all the artists that participated in this showcase and thank all parents and staff that helped support the amazing talent that was on display at the event. In addition to all of the after-school events Liberty is hosting, the administration and staff continue to work well with each other to bring innovative lessons to the classroom. The AP Biology and Environmental classes had the opportunity to participate in a controlled burn along with the New Jersey Forest Fire Service. The event helped generate excitement among the students and reinforce important topics discussed in school, offering real-life applications. It was a value experience. As you can see, Liberty is staying involved and participating in different activities. I appreciate you giving me this platform to best represent some of the good news circulating around Liberty. We appreciate the opportunities that we have and thank you for your support through them all. Have a good evening. Before I end, we have a short video of the play, Legally Blonde.
Somebody classy, not too tatty. Oh,
What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want?
car is a perfect place for me.
Pretty impressive, good to know.
Blood in the water.
We're positive. The Irish fear nothing and no one.
Little Miss Woods gonna hell.
Hey mom, look at my name. Get you into shape. Here's your chance to make it.
Your chance to make it.
Snap now.
Okay, we're gay. Much in
Back to the
love.
sun.
Thank you. It was very informative. Lots of things happening over there at Liberty High School, and some wonderful clips of the amazing talent we have in this district and what our amazing staff coordinates with this talent is incredible. So Keith, I'd like you to come from Memorial High School and give us an update on what's happening at Memorial.
Good evening, Mrs. Pormilli, members of the Central Administration staff, and board members. It is my pleasure to update you all on the exciting and eventful month we've had at Jackson Memorial High School. To start things off, as we near the end of the marking period, I am happy to report that our students and staff have been working hard to finish the term strong. Tomorrow marks the end of the 4th marking period, and we look forward to seeing the results of our students' efforts. Spring break is also right around the corner, starting on April 6th, and students and staff alike are excited for the much-needed break. It is a time to recharge and refresh before returning for the final stretch of the school year. I'm pleased to report that SpongeBob the Musical was a huge success. We had a very impressive number in attendance over the course of last weekend, and our talented students put on an incredible performance, entertaining the entire audience with their singing, dancing, and acting skills. The feedback from the community has been overwhelmingly positive, and we're proud of our students' hard work and dedication to the production. Another huge success in terms of events was our Battle of the Classes. The competition brought together students from all grade levels and showcased their talents and teamwork. It was a fantastic event that demonstrated the sense of community and school spirit that we have at Jackson Memorial. I would also like to take this opportunity to mention that our Interact Club is hosting a volleyball tournament on March 24th, which promises to be a fun-filled event for everyone involved. As winter sports have come to an end, I want to take a moment to recognize our outstanding athletes. Our girls basketball team won the NJSIAA Group 4 State Sectional, an incredible achievement that deserves applause. Additionally, as I mentioned last month, our wrestling team was crowned Group 4 State Sectional champs and went on to compete at the Group 4 State Finals, with a highlight being Ryan Fisher, who took 6th in the state. Girls wrestling ended the season as the #1 team in New Jersey, with Camilla Bizad taking 2nd in the state and Marlo Donato, who also took 2nd in the state. Along with that, girls and boys bowling were also crowned at Group 3 state champs. And for indoor track, Matthew Grandilli won the 800-meter race for Central Jersey Group 3. And as we brought up last meeting, at the end of the basketball season, we ended up with 4 seniors reaching the 1,000-point milestone. Those seniors being myself, Samir Padilla, Respect Tyleek, and Zoe Maffey. It is truly inspiring to see our students excel both academically and athletically, and we are proud to have them represent Jackson Memorial High School. Moving on to spring sports, we are excited to see our team start up again. As the weather gets warmer, we can look forward to watching our baseball, softball, lacrosse, track and field, tennis, volleyball, and golf teams compete. We wish them all the best of luck in their upcoming seasons and are confident that they will make us proud. In other news, we recently had a student-faculty basketball game during our common period that was a huge success. Many students and staff members showed up to watch, and it was a fun and enjoyable experience for all involved. These types of events strengthen our sense of community at JMHS, and we look forward to making use of the common period to organize more events in the future. We are happy to report that our March into Wellness initiative is going well. As mentioned in our previous update, we are prioritizing the mental and emotional well-being of our students and offering various wellness initiatives throughout the month of March. We are excited to announce that March into Wellness Spirit Week will be starting next week, which includes daily themes such as Tie-Dye Day to spread love and peace, Wear All Green Day to represent the green light to reach out for help, Twin Day to match with your biggest supporter, Create Your Own Happiness Day to wear whatever brings you joy, and Positivity Day to show school spirit. For our seniors, regular decisions for college are coming out around now. We wish all our seniors the best of luck and know that they will go on to do great things in their post-high school lives. We are proud of everything they have accomplished during their time at JMHS and look forward to seeing them succeed in the future. Additionally, our seniors have finished submitting applications for local scholarships, and we're excited to see who will be awarded these prestigious awards. Over these past few weeks, our DECA and FBLA chapters attended state competition at Harrah's Resort in Atlantic City. A big shout out to Genevieve Kai and Robert Facito, who placed top 10 in their category for FBLA, and Gianni Mustaro, who was a finalist for his category. I'm proud to announce that our DECA chapter had 3 international qualifiers after competing at state competition. Big shout outs to Alex Ariel, Jameson Klinsky, and Sujita Bomaneni. This is a remarkable achievement and a testament to the hard work and dedication of our business students and their advisors. I will be joining them on the trip to Orlando, Florida for ICDC, and know that we will represent JMHS with excellence and pride. And speaking of business students, our Business Honor Society induction ceremony will be taking place on March 21st. We congratulate all the students who have worked hard to achieve this honor. Before I finish my update, I would like to take a moment to express our condolences to Ms. McGinley's family and friends. We found out she had passed away on Tuesday. Ms. McGinley was a valued member of our school community, and she will be deeply missed. We send our thoughts and prayers out to our loved ones during this difficult time. In closing, I would like to thank Mrs. Parmilli and the Board of Education once again for your continued support. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight, and I look forward to updating you all again next month. And with that being said, here are a few clips from our musical.
Today's the best day ever.
Now. It's the best day ever.
Thank you, Keith. Amazing play again, and wow, what an amazing winter athletic season for Memorial. Lots of things happening in our high schools, both academically and co-curricular. Wonderful programs. Moving forward with the rest of my superintendent's report tonight, I would like to move on to some business now in regards to our annual audit report. This is the time of the year in which we hear from Mr. Swisher from Supley, Clooney and Company Auditing Firm, about our annual audit report. Mr. Swisher.
Thank you very much. This isn't usually the time of year that you see me. You usually see me in late November, early December. For the fourth year in a row, the audit report was delayed due to the fact that certain numbers that we get from the Division of Pensions at the state level were unavailable. They only came out literally at the beginning of this month. So every district in the state was delayed in the issuance of their audit. Tonight, I'm here to talk to you about the result of the audit from June 30th, 2022. So we're quite a ways past there. Our firm is supposed to come in and conduct an audit. It's required by the state of New Jersey that every school district has an independent auditor come in and do a financial, internal control, and compliance audit. And I have the results of this audit in front of me. There's two reports that I delivered this evening. Okay, we're still processing reports and trying to get them out to our districts. But there's two reports that you're going to get. And the larger of the two, the annual comprehensive financial report, contains the opinion on the financial statement. And that's really the most important thing that we do for you, is to render an opinion on the financial statement to say that they are free from material misstatement. In other words, you can rely upon them. To do that, we perform certain audit procedures to the records provided to us by the business office. We test transactions, we test account balances through an audit program that we've developed to make sure that the records are correct. And again, that you can rely upon them, the public can rely upon them. And I'm happy to say that the opinion on the financial statements is unmodified, which is the best opinion you can get. Most districts in the state do get an unmodified opinion, but still it's a credit to the business office to be able to produce records that you can rely upon, give them to us, they're put through our tests, and you get this unmodified opinion. The second letter in the report, the ACFR that I referenced earlier, is on internal controls and compliance. The internal controls are the rules and regulations that you internally put together to make sure that those transactions are properly recorded in the system. We look at those internal controls, we make sure they're suitably designed to do what they're supposed to do, and then we test them to make sure that they're actually being done. And I'm happy to report that your internal controls are properly designed, and our testing didn't reveal any problems that would need to be reported in the audit report. The second part of that letter involves compliance. Compliance regards things on the federal level, state level, local level, all kinds of compliance regarding payroll, purchasing, capital assets, any of a host of things, where we also do additional testing. And again, if I had problems and I had found exceptions in this opinion, it would show those findings. I'm happy to say again that it's clean. So clean for internal controls, clean for compliance. There is a third letter in the ACFR that involves a single audit, which is testing of your federal and state grants. We were required, after you go over certain thresholds, to do additional testing and select some of these programs and go through federal and state compliance supplements and do additional testing. As I noted before, ESSER, one of the COVID monies that's come into all districts, is high in that list. We tested the ESSER monies, and I'm happy to say again, we didn't find problems with it. So you've got 3 letters, you've got 3 letters that are clean. Okay, that's in the ACFR. There's also a companion report to that, the Auditor's Management Report, which the state requires us to do, the State Department of Education, where they ask us to report on certain areas of compliance that they deem to be important. Some of the areas I mentioned before: purchasing, payroll, your treasurer's report, your secretary's report, etc. If there were problems in that second opinion, okay, on internal controls and compliance, it would reference you to that management report to show you the findings and recommendations. But I'm happy to report tonight that there are no findings and recommendations. And I think that's a couple years in a row that you've gotten that, which is good. So you're going to get these reports. They're here now, but you're going to have the opportunity to look at them. There's a lot of information in there. And I apologize for the timing, but I said we didn't get the information from the state until literally the beginning of this month, so we're processing our reports. So I'll take any questions on anything I've spoken about right now, but once you get the opportunity to look at the reports, if you have questions, I can come back to future meetings. But I'll take any questions from the board right now.
Okay, I'm not seeing any questions.
Okay, I'd like to take 2 seconds to thank Nicole and Michelle and their staffs for dealing with us. It's not fun when you're trying to do your job day to day and you have us in there for the better part of a month plus asking questions. They're always very professional. They always have the answers, and that's reflective in this report. So again, once you receive the reports, if you have any questions, just reach out. I'd be happy to attend another meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swisher.
Thank you, Mr. Swisher. Okay, moving on now to our next item of business. This is the time of the year that we do actually have our first report period to our Board of Education on the violence, vandalism, and HIB report that's required to give to our, we report it to the board, and we also have to report it to the state. So we have Mr. Maluski here this evening, who will be presenting. He is the Director of Security and our HIB coordinator. Mr. Maluski.
Thank you, Mrs. Permilli. Good evening, Mr. Palmieri, Mrs. Cass, all of our board members, and everybody in attendance this evening. The first report that I'll be presenting is our semi-annual report on violence, vandalism, substance abuse, and weapons offenses in our school district. This is for the period of September of 2022 to December 2022. A little bit of background and overview. The state of New Jersey began collecting data in March of 2002. The objective is to collect and report incident data concerning serious student misconduct in the areas of violence, vandalism, harassment, intimidation, and bullying, weapons offenses, and also substance abuse. On the right-hand side, you'll see a chart, type of incident from top to bottom: violence, vandalism, HIB reports investigated, weapons, and substance abuse. The center column is our data and our incidents that were reported for September of 2021 during that same time period. And on the far right is our current information for this report period that I'm reporting on this evening. In the area of violence, our numbers stayed about the same. There were 10 incidents reported this year in comparison to last year. Vandalism incidents did increase slightly. There were 3 incidents reported for this reporting period compared to 1 last year. In the areas of harassment, intimidation, and bullying, we received 40 reports which were investigated in comparison to 36 last year. I'm happy to report in the area of weapons, there were 0 reports of weapons for this reporting period. And under substance abuse, you will notice an increase in substance abuse cases. Total number of 70 reported for this report period compared to 7 last year. I will be providing some further explanation and some factors which we believe have contributed to the increase of the substance abuse cases in our district. And as I mentioned, I'll provide that information a little bit later in this report. In the area of violence reports at our elementary level schools, there are 0 reports of incidents in the areas of fights, simple assaults, threats, and sexual offenses. Regarding HIB reports investigated, Crawford saw 3 incidents, Elms 1, Holman School saw 1 incident that was reported, Johnson saw 3 incidents, Rosenauer 1, Switlick 0. There were a total of 9 HIB reports at our elementary level. At our secondary schools, Getz, McCall, Liberty, and Memorial, There were a total of 6 fights reported across all those schools, 2 simple assaults, 2 threats that were reported, 0 sexual assaults. There were a total of 31 HIB report complaints that were investigated at the secondary school level across all of the secondary schools. Our vandalism and substance abuse data for the report period that we're reporting on tonight. Vandalism incidents, there were 3 vandalism incidents reported at Jackson Memorial High School. The remainder of our schools saw 0 incidents. Regarding substance use and students who were found to be under the influence, there were 22 total reported cases involving marijuana. 1 case regarding or reported alcohol. Prescription drugs were 0. And 2 incidents in where a substance was suspected and an exam was refused. Regarding substance possession, there were 27 incidents of marijuana possession in our schools, 16 incidents of drug paraphernalia, 1 incident of alcohol, and 1 incident regarding designer synthetic drugs. Regarding weapons, there were 0 reports of weapons in our district schools. Action taken by our school district for reportable violence and vandalism offenses. These were instances where the police were notified and there was no complaint filed on their behalf. There were 37 incidents to report for this report period. In actions taken where police were notified and a complaint was filed, there was 1 incident reported. In-school suspensions, regarding these incidents, there were 2. And as you can see, highlighted out-of-school suspensions, there was a total of 214 total days that were imposed regarding out-of-school suspensions by our administrators regarding these incidents. Another area that's highlighted, students that were impacted by these incidents, there were 54 student offenders, and there was 1 student victim. As I mentioned, some of the further explanation and data and factors that we believe are influencing our increase in substance abuse and use cases. As you recall, in 2021, Governor Murphy signed into law the legalization of marijuana and hashish for recreational use. Since then, 35 medicinal and recreational dispensaries are actively operating in New Jersey, and that number is increasing. The point with that is that there is more access to these items, marijuana, out in public. Additionally, in many of our cases that we're seeing in our district, e-cigarettes and vape products are being used in many of these instances. In regards to those products, there's many products that are marketed and advertised today, many different shapes, sizes, styles, and colors. They are very easy to conceal and they're very often difficult to detect in our schools. These different various types of products enable the use of illicit drugs. And going along with some of the different types and shapes, there are vapes and e-cigarettes that are disposable. There are pods that are being used out there, mods, box mods, pens. There are nicotine vapes that are specifically designed and used for nicotine products and tobacco products, and there are also vapes that are out there and marketed and being sold that are specifically designed for cannabis use, marijuana. These products are seemingly readily available to underage students. We've all seen, there's been an increase of vape shops and smoke shops, retail stores where these products are available. And additionally, many of these products are easily available online. One of these, if you just go back a second, one of the surveys that's conducted annually by the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, and the Food and Drug Administration is the National Youth Tobacco Survey. This survey has been conducted annually since 2011, and I believe it was first created in 1999. The most recent survey that was conducted last year in 2022, information provided by the CDC and the Federal Food and Drug Administration, shows that more than 1 in 10 middle and high school students, a little over 3 million students, are reported to using a tobacco product in the last 10 days at the time when this survey was conducted. 16.5% of our high school students and 4.5% of middle school students reported to be using these products. The most commonly used product was the e-cigarette and vape, and our sources are the CDC and the FDA. What are we doing to respond to these increased substance abuse cases in our schools? Continued education of our students, focusing on the dangers and the negative impact and the health concerns associated with substance abuse. Increased visibility of our school security and staff and our supervision in the hallways during school hours. Our school law enforcement officers, our security officers and administrators are visible out in the hallways. Frequent checks of all areas of our buildings throughout the day to deter the substance abuse and use and vaping and possession by our students. Focused checks on restrooms, stairwells, and other areas that have been identified associated with substance use or vaping. And a heightened awareness for students exhibiting signs of substance use during school hours. And lastly, information sharing between our administrators, our school security officers, and our school resource officers to identify the concerns and try to deter these behaviors in our schools. And that concludes my report, or violence and vandalism report. I'll take any questions if any of our board members have anything.
Question. At Switlick, they have no reports of HIB, violence, fights, all the categories. Is there something that that school is implementing to improve their community and culture there and climate for the students?
Yeah, our ABS is working very hard to train and provide education on harassment, intimidation, and bullying. As you know, our enrollment is about 220 students at that school, could be slightly more. So again, our ABSs and our administrators at that building are doing a good job to educate our students on the dangers and also to educate them on harassment, intimidation, and bullying. So it's having an impact.
Quick question. So substance abuse year over year was up tenfold from 21 to 22. And I see you've implemented checks and balances to deter it this year. Do you have the current numbers where we are this year so far, and have you seen a decline from 22?
The numbers so far, as I mentioned, the numbers, that 70 number is the total reported cases for the first reporting period. I'd have to go back and take a look at where we currently are at this point for March 15th. But I can provide that information to you. But I just need to dig deeper to find out what those numbers are, where they're at this moment. Okay, no other questions? My next report will be the harassment, intimidation, and bullying report, our semi-annual report for the same reporting period. This report period runs from September of 2022 to December of 2022. I'd just like to point out there's been a lot of focus in Ocean County regarding harassment, intimidation, and bullying recently. And I just want to state our commitment, the Jackson School District's commitment to harassment, intimidation, and bullying. The Jackson School District is committed to creating a safe learning environment for all of our students. We are committed to investigating all complaints of harassment, intimidation, and bullying. And we are committed to preventing all acts of harassment, intimidation, and bullying in our schools. On the left-hand side of the slide is a list of all of our 10 district schools and our assigned anti-bullying specialists at those schools. On the right-hand side of the slide is some of the preventive training that's been conducted this year in regards to harassment, intimidation, and bullying. Some of that training includes administrator HIB training for all school principals and assistant principals. This training was conducted in August of 2022. Legal HIB training for building administrators and school anti-bullying specialists was conducted in September of 2022 in the areas of administrative code provisions, the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights recent legal cases, some investigation strategies, and use of our new HIB reporting forms. Additionally, some of the HIB prevention training topics presented to our students during that same time period by our anti-bullying specialists include behavior expectations, conflict resolution, cyberbullying, social skills and relationship improvement, cultural awareness and implicit bias, groups at risk for HIB, victims of HIB and bystanders, and HIB consequences. Some of our continuing school-wide programs are Lead University, which were conducted at McCall from the Getz Middle Schools, our Week of Respect and School Anti-Violence Awareness Weeks, our SEL and classroom programs, responsive classrooms in our elementary schools, advisory periods at our middle schools, and school climate team meetings amongst our staff members as part of their training. Some of the data information regarding our investigations at the elementary level. There is a comparison from last year, September 21 to September 22, up on the board. On the right-hand side, you'll see our confirmed cases at each one of our schools, as well as the alleged cases in the middle of the screen. The Crawford School saw 2 confirmed cases of HIB. The Elm School had 0. Holman School had 0 confirmed cases for this report period. The Johnson School had 1 confirmed case. Rosenhauer had 1 confirmed case. Switlick had 0, for a total of 4 at the elementary level. At our secondary schools, Getz, McAuliffe, Liberty, and Memorial, again, there's a comparison up on the screen from last year, our alleged reports versus our confirmed cases. At the Getz School for this report period, there were 0 confirmed cases. McAuliffe saw 7 confirmed cases this report period. Liberty saw 3 confirmed cases. Memorial had a total of 2, for a total of 12 confirmed HIB cases at our secondary schools. The motivation of the confirmed HIBs: in 8 of those investigations, appearance was the motivating factor. Sexual orientation or gender in 3 of those cases. Disabilities, 2. Race, 2. Age, 1. Some of the classifications of actions of the investigated HIB incidents included demeaning, offensive text messages, name-calling, offensive comments, mocking, taunting, hitting, assuming the identity, and a new category which is up on the board is roasting. This sort of behavior involves students getting involved in making insulting comments back and forth to one another. It's very popular with comedians, professional comedians that are out there, but it is concerning when it goes too far and it crosses a line and becomes a bullying incident. So we're keeping a close eye on our roasting cases or incidents involving roasting amongst our students. The locations of the investigated HIB incidents: 21 of the incidents occurred on school grounds, 14 of the incidents occurred on our school buses, and 5 of the incidents involved cell phones and the internet. The outcomes of all the investigated HIB incidents, some of the consequences and remedial measures that were implemented were parent-student conferences, out-of-school suspensions, in-school suspensions, detention. Some of the remedial measures that were commonly used were counseling, seating changes, mediation, and restorative practice lessons. And in conclusion, regarding our HIB complaints, we investigate everything. As I mentioned earlier in my report, that there's been a tremendous amount of spotlight placed on harassment, intimidation, bullying in Ocean County as of late. But just to reiterate, we investigate everything. Our HIB complaint submissions can be received in person, by telephone, via email, or via links located on our district website. New for 2022-2023, signed by our governor, is HIB Form 338, which is available on our district website. It provides a means for parents, guardians, or a staff member to report an incident of HIB in a confidential manner, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And in conclusion, all of our HIB complaints are promptly investigated in accordance with District Policy 5512 regarding harassment, intimidation, and bullying of our students. That concludes my report. I'll be happy to take any questions regarding harassment, intimidation, and bullying.
I have another question. What exactly is an advisory period at the middle school level?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
What exactly takes place at an advisory, what was it called, an advisory period at the middle school level? Like, what is that?
I can take that one.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Primelli.
You're welcome. So advisory period actually is the middle school portion of responsive classroom. So it's extending from our elementary responsive classroom daily meeting into the middle school. So during the beginning parts of the day, they are together and they work through different scenarios. They learn how to communicate, set goals. They learn about incidents of how to communicate better, be respectful, appreciate everybody and acceptance of everybody, along with the norms of a school and how you, set your own goals for yourself, but also set your goals for becoming a community together and being responsible together. You're welcome.
Okay, no other questions. Thank you for having me this evening, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mutluski. So before I move to the next topic, I just want to conclude that report by saying we recognize that this work on making sure our schools are the safest they can be for our students and that our students feel comfortable and safe, whether it be through supports for physical safety or emotional safety, that this work we recognize is never done. And we continue to move forward and do more and more to support our students so that they feel comfortable and safe coming to school. The next item that in my superintendent report that needs to get done tonight is to present a tentative budget. I'm going to move to the podium and begin to outline a difficult scenario, a very difficult scenario. So I'm going to take this evening to educate the board and the public on, you have heard me say before, the perfect storm scenario. So I'm going to move to the podium and we're going to spend some time looking at this scenario that we are in. So this evening, the tentative budget is something that gets done and completed in school districts during the March board meetings. It's the time of the month where school districts receive their state aid funding, and we are required to put together tentative numbers for what we might be looking at for next year's budget, meaning the 23-24 school year. You've heard me say before over the last few months that we are headed to a perfect storm situation. You've heard the expression before, fiscal cliff. All of these things that you've heard from myself and also previous superintendents here in Jackson. You also might be hearing some of those terms in some other Ocean County schools who are facing similar situations due to the loss of state aid through the S2 legislation that was put into place. So tonight, this district is required, we are required to put numbers into a template and into a budget form for our county superintendent by March 20th. But I want to make a very clear statement that this tentative budget is plugging numbers in so that we can submit that, so we can continue the process of reviewing this, because we do not believe this tentative budget is anywhere near where we want to be. So you will see some information this evening that outlines where we're at and why we're there, but please do not think that we are anywhere near finalizing this budget. No final decisions have been made. This is tentative so that we can continue the process and meet the requirements of putting together these numbers for our county superintendent. So let me recap. You have seen this slide multiple times if you have been viewing any of the information on budget over the last several years. This is the S2 legislation that was put into place 6 years ago. You can see there the projected amount of money that we are set to lose year after year, based on the fact that the legislation was going to be reducing our state aid to Jackson schools. What you see there is this year, finding out that we were anticipating a $2.5 million cut. Mind you, this was a schedule that was shared with us when the S2 legislation went into place. So we were anticipating what they told us, a $2.5 million cut. However, 2 weeks ago, we learned that that cut was going to be a $6.2 million cut. 2 weeks before we have to strike a tentative budget. Last year, we also received more of a cut than, again, the schedule outlined that was shared with us. And overall, you can see we're projected to lose now $23 million over 7 years. That has gone up from 19, based on these new, recent, larger cuts to state aid from last year and this year. And then who knows, we're anticipated $806,000 based again on that original schedule. But if you look at this pattern here, I'm not so sure it's only going to be $806,000. So this budget is a reflection of 6 years worth of decimating budget cuts every year for the past 6 years. We have been discussing, we have been advocating the S2 funding formula that has cut our aid more than $22 million. Again, $23 million or even higher, including next year. Cut to state aid. $23 million over this amount of time that you cannot recoup. Meanwhile, as you all know, expenses continue to rise, and we have a 2% cap. That's as high as we can go to raise money for taxes to go towards our revenue. We have been forced over all of these years to work in a cut budget model. Every year, we are cutting and cutting and cutting, year after year, always reducing over these 6 years. That's a terrible way to work in education. Cut, cut, cut. We've reduced operational costs, we've cut staff, we postpone needed improvements to our facilities, we seek additional revenue, and we had a need to draw down our surplus funds. Think of the surplus in a budget as like your savings account at home. These are items, the surplus is what we generate at the end of the year to see what's left out of our budget, and traditionally we have been rolling that over year after year, however knowing when these S2 cuts came that we would be chipping away at it year after year. Eventually, if your expenses are going up higher than your revenue, you're going to be depleting that surplus. We have now depleted that surplus. By comparison, what you see here, like last year, we are enduring the 5th largest cut to state aid in all of New Jersey. You can see the numbers there, the percentages lost. It's decimating. By comparison, if you looked at similar like districts that were receiving the same amount of state aid as we are, based on their enrollment, they could spend out of that state aid money that they're given about $10,500 per student. When you do that comparison for the amount of state aid that we will have, in comparison to our population, we can only use that state aid per pupil at $3,800. Vast difference. As I said, we have worked hard over the many years, as you can imagine, with these devastating cuts year after year, working in a cut model of budgeting. We knew that we needed to work and have creative solutions how to lower our expenses. So over these years, we have been working hard, you can see, on these things that are very big budget hits to any school budget. Healthcare is a massive hit to any school budget. As you can see there by the numbers listed, we have really worked hard to maintain that. Everybody understands and experienced this in their own personal lives. Healthcare has gone up drastically. I'm sure you've seen the articles this past year, 15% increases. We have worked hard to maintain this. That's a difficult thing to do. The costs of our out-of-district special education placements, again, those are big things. This is a big item to district budgets. You can see there again, even with every year tuition going up significantly for these out-of-district placements, we have worked hard on keeping our students in the least restrictive environment. We have created strong programs in our school district to allow those students to stay with their like peers, as we should be doing. That's the right thing to do, which also has allowed us to lower, that's like unheard of, lower costs for out-of-district placement. Again, trying to be responsible and doing the right thing by our students. Every year we have reduced staff. Every year we pay attention to what grants are out there and we aggressively pursue them. You've seen lots of them on board approval. We advertise on our school buses, we rent our facilities, and every year we do an application and fight for some stabilization aid. These are ways that over time, over these years of cuts to S2, we have tried to be fiscally responsible. We've advocated. You all have heard me before. You have seen the emails we have put out. We have expressed ourselves tremendously to everybody we possibly could to explain what will happen if these S2 cuts continue. You see the list there. We've testified. Again, next week I'm testifying in front of the Senate and Assembly budget committees. You're only allowed one person to testify from the district. I will be there. We have put out advocacy emails to our community. Please help us. We were told you have to talk to your legislators. They're the ones who can help you. We've done that. We even had a legislator willing to write a bill to help to see if there was something besides S2 that could help us. We have talked to legislators. Most recently, Assemblyman Sawicki has been a great help in trying to get us to the governor's office to talk to those people there, to let them see. We want to believe they just don't understand what's happening. Because if you understand what's happening, you can't be cutting us like this. And I do believe more and more people are hearing us. I do believe more and more people want to help us, but we can't just rely on hope. But we are not stopping to advocate. So, in a budget, basically to summarize, it's very complicated. A school budget is complicated, but if you're going to summarize it, and the things we're going to look at tonight are you basically have your revenue sources and you have your expenditures. And in this scenario, you're going to see revenues declining and expenditures are going up out of our control of things that we can't control. Just like in your home, you can't control when the heating bill goes up, when the gas and the food go up in our homes. The other thing that I wanted to make sure that I explained tonight is enrollment, because S2 talked in legislation that it was tied to enrollment, and that you were having decreases in enrollment, and you weren't paying your local fair share of school taxes. Which I would like to just pause there for a minute and say, if a town has a surplus of money, a town, not a school, there's no mechanism for a school district to tap into that money to increase your revenue, to increase your local fair share. So we continually have a revenue loss, but we have no other way other than a 2% cap to raise any taxes. And so I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the revenue and expenditures and enrollment tonight. The revenue side. There are a few sources of revenue in a school district. You see them listed here. The biggest one, as we know that we're taking the biggest hit on, is our state aid. That is money that comes to us every year. The tax levy, as I mentioned before, there's legislation that goes back all the way to Governor Christie, who put the 2% cap in. At that time, it made sense. The economy was different. Things are much different now. To cap us at a 2% increase, that's nothing. As you can see there, that only brings up our tax levy into the district, $1.8 million for next year, an increase. We know things have gone up a lot more than that. There's no way we only have a $1.8 million increase in our budget. As I said before, grants is a way that revenue comes to us, and we have taken, we have really taken interest in a lot of grants, and we have a lot of grants in our district, and that's kudos to our amazing staff who go after them and seek them, trying to help us stay innovative and creative. We don't have a grant writer, so our teachers are writing these grants, our supervisors are writing these grants, our administrators are writing these grants, our directors, again, because they all want to see good things for students. We do receive federal aid and state aid. Those are our title services. You'll see on the agenda almost every single board meeting. Many of the programs that are funded right now are funded through title funds, and those funds come to us through applications based on our free and reduced applications. So by filling those out, it brings more federal funds to be used for those types of things. Participation, now those are big ticket items that I've mentioned before somewhat, but now you're looking at some of those smaller items to bring in revenue. I mean, they bring in some revenue, absolutely, but they're certainly not going to make up for any major state aid cuts that we see. So obviously, the participation fees for athletics and co-curriculars, our food service revenue, childcare revenue, we rent our facilities, any donations we get, and our preschool aid is another source, but that money for preschool can only be spent on preschool expenses. So the big piece is our state funding. This is where our state aid comes into play. This is our biggest source of revenue, other than our taxes, obviously. So you'll see there, again, the year after year comparison of our state aid. So not only have we dropped drastically year after year, you look $42 million to start, and now we're just about half of that. We've lost half of our state aid, which cannot be recouped. It's gone forever. Now look at the rest of the aid up there. It's flat. Nothing has gone up. We know expenses have gone up. We know we need more transportation support. We know how important security is to our district. We continually strengthen it, but we're flat. And I just want to mention about the transportation aid. Some of our neighboring districts receive millions of dollars in transportation aid. Toms River, Brick, Lakewood all receive millions of dollars. We're flat. So here was a little bit of a lifeline for us. You will see some additional funding and increases in extraordinary aid. You see those little life preservers there, because the last 2 years we received stabilization aid. That was a lifesaver for that year, right? The 2 years there of receiving stabilization aid was a lifesaver. But there's a little bit of a problem when you have a one and a done lifesaver. It doesn't fix our problem long term. So what you see here is the final conclusion in the story of the loss of aid, the flat aid, the little bit of the lifesaver. If we did not have those 2 years of that stabilization aid, we would have hit this fiscal cliff 2 years ago. Those two things helped us, along with some of the other COVID money that we'll talk about in a minute. It kept us afloat. You see this great loss here is just, it's devastating. You know, a 41% decrease in revenue. As I mentioned, we had a couple of lifesavers that kept us afloat for the last few years. The COVID-related funding we received kept us moving. We used it wisely, but without these funds, we would have been forced to make the drastic changes even sooner than this upcoming budget, which we're about to experience. And quite frankly, over those 2 years, we would have been really hard-pressed to cut services to our students who were experiencing learning loss, increased mental health, and behavioral concerns. Here's the revenue side again of our tax levy versus our reduction in state aid. You can see, again, clearly the increases that we can make of 2% aren't nearly going to make up for the drastic losses that we're receiving in our state aid. That's the revenue side. So a constant decrease in our revenue over the last 6 years. So enrollment. I think it's important for us to take a look at what we see again. Here you have the aid at the top. You see the drastic decrease year after year. 41% of our aid lost. Well, if this is partly tied to enrollment, you see our enrollment numbers there. We lost some students. We lost, total there on the slides is 965, I believe. That's 11, almost 12% over the last 6 years. Does that warrant a 41% decrease in our state aid? I don't believe so. That seems a little drastic. So again, you see here the mismatch. Why are we can't continue to lose that way, and then also see that our enrollment, and you'll see during the COVID year, we did lose. We lost about 300 and something students, and quite frankly, a lot of them decided to educate their kids at home, which is why. We're holding a little steady now, losing about 100 and something this past year. We're kind of leveling out a little bit there, but again, we don't know what to expect moving forward, but 12% decrease over 6 years is pretty similar to what a lot of districts are receiving right now. As I mentioned, over the years of S2, we have been cutting. We have been doing a lot of it through attrition, so that people were not losing jobs. So every time somebody left, whether it was a retirement or they left for something else, we'd relook at that position and see, is there another creative way to do that? Can we reduce that? And we have reduced 151.5 positions since 2017. So we have been trying to reduce our expenditures again. We are efficient, we are effective, we are under adequacy in spending according to the adequacy budget calculations in the state of New Jersey. We are under that. We are the 14th lowest per pupil expense out of 92 school districts. We are working to be efficient and adequate in our spending, but yet we're still receiving these drastic cuts. So the expenditure side, we talked about the revenue side decreasing. Here's the expenditure side, and as you can imagine, do expenditures ever really go down? No, they always go up. And the challenge that we face with the funding cuts on top of these expenditure challenges, you've heard and seen me talk about these before. These are things that we are obligated to do, that are out of our control. These are things that have to move forward, and they're always increases, although we work hard to decrease where we can. But look at what you're combating. Look at the inflation rising. And we can only, again, raise our tax levy by 2%, and we are getting cut significantly. We've lost half of our state aid. You put those two pieces together, you can see why we're in a very difficult budget situation. These are other challenges to a budget. You'll see here, you've seen these numbers before. They're not the only challenges, but every budget has challenges. These are challenges, increases in our transportation needs and increases in our services for our English language learner students. We're required to have a certain amount of teachers. An example is in 17-18, we had 4 ELL teachers. We now currently have 11. So again, these are things that have to happen. These are things that are required and should be happening, but they are large expenses to the budget. So what does this mean? It's not a good scenario. We have reached that fiscal cliff. We've lost aid. We have increases, so we've lost revenue, but increases in expenditure. And as I said, we have chipped away at that surplus. Very little to roll over into the next year. We work to generate it more, but we're not generating it because our revenue is bigger than our loss is bigger. Our expenditures are bigger, and our revenue has declined. These, again, please know we are not at a budget. But the impact to this tentative budget would be these significant reductions in our staff. Administration, certified, non-certified staff, courtesy busing, which is not considered T&E, which is a thorough and efficient education according to our state. Reduction of our extracurriculars, again, not considered T&E by our state for the most part. Same with district sports. All of our Tier 1 projects, except safety-related ones, would be gone. Reduction in our school budgets. Our curriculum cycle would have to pause. We would not be able to buy new resources. Technology would be reduced. We would lose our technology cycle of replacement of technology. And we would be looking at increasing participation fees just to keep our co-curriculars and athletics, some of them. And even with all of those things, we still would not be at a balanced budget. We still have work to do. We have to explore every possible area to create a budget by April, while we are still working with our county office, our state legislators, our county legislators, to continue to get them to see what is happening. And we are not alone. Working closely with Toms River and Brick and Lacey to do the same. A united front so that, again, we can educate people to understand what's happening here so we can get some relief. I cannot believe they understand it. I have to be transparent. I want to address, I'm sure, the elephant in the room. For many, many years, the rumor has been that we would be selling Rosenauer Elementary School. There are a lot of students at Rosenauer right now. In that scenario, if that happened, we would be overcrowding our other schools that have trailers of students. We also have to think, we have to explore and say, well, what would that mean? We wouldn't be doing our due diligence if we didn't. But you have to look at lots of students there, overcrowding schools, we have trailers, and then what's the win of selling that in regards financially to this budget? That would be, again, very much like the ESSER funds and the stabilization. It would be a one-and-done money revenue. It doesn't solve the overall long-term problem that we don't have enough revenue every year coming in. Doing it once only creates a bigger hole down the road. Simultaneously, the things that we have to think about is, well, what expenses would come out of that we would still have? And a large expense is we have a lot of walkers who go to Rosenauer. They no longer could walk. They would now have to be bused, which adds to our busing shortage of drivers, and right, we know we have that. Plus, it's an expense. So what's the gain by selling? But I will say, everything is being explored. There has been no decision made, and we want to make the decisions that are in the best interest of our students. This is not okay. These reductions are not okay. That's why I started by saying, these are numbers in a spreadsheet to meet a tentative budget so we can continue to move on with our process, but we are nowhere near a budget. This is not okay, and we will continue to fight. So the figures on the next slides demonstrate, we do this every year, the bottom line and what this means, the tentative budget impact on the tax levy and the homeowner. I'm actually going to turn it over to Ms. Richardson in a moment, but again, as I said, you see there in writing, excuse me, no decisions have been made, and we are not at a budget. Ms. Richardson?
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Permelli. Anyway, I'd like to, every year at this time, I like to say what the tax impact would be if this was our final budget. And based upon, well, this next slide, can you go to the next one, Allison? Taxes are raised for the current expense budget, which is called the general fund tax levy, and also for debt services. Those are the only two that we have in our budget. The next one with our, The next slide, please. Thank you. The general fund tax levy that is proposed at this time is $93,274,419, which is a 1.8% increase, which Mrs. Permelli mentioned is the 2% that we're allowed to do. State aid, of course, is going down by 21%. Our total general fund of $136,773 is a decrease of $5.7 million, 4.6%. Our federal and state programs are going down also at $6.3 million, 31%. Our total debt is almost flat. It's going up to $2,600, and it's a small 0.03% increase. The total budget is being proposed to tentatively $158,903,894, which is a decrease of $12,159,933, which is a 7% decrease. And I always like to explain what, I'm not the tax assessor down at the township, but I always calculate it anyway to see what the effect is on the taxpayer. For this budget, it is a 0.0005 cent increase to the taxpayer. The average home, of course, and the average home in Jackson, which we asked the township to give us that information, is $330,688. The tax rate that I calculated is 1.4203 per 100 of assessed home value. If your home's not 330, you would take the first three digits of your home value and multiply by that 1.402, and then you would come up 4203, and you'd come up with it. This year, it actually is only a $2 increase for the year because the ratables went up tremendously for 2023 in Jackson. And that's it. Mrs. Permelli, back to you.
Thank you. So as always, these budget presentations are always presented and then also put up on our district website. We will also be sharing this information out. Our entire community needs to understand the situation, the fiscal cliff that we are in, so that they can help us to advocate. This is the budget process. We are now be working very hard, as I said, exploring where our possibilities lie, hope that some relief will come, knowing that we can't count on hope, but continue to work hard and find creative solutions so that we can keep our programs. We feel strongly we cannot, as educators, do this to a district, and we will do everything in our power to make sure it doesn't happen. Are there any questions from the board before I go back to my seat?
I have two questions. I'll just say them together. One's for you and one's for Ms. Richardson.
Sure.
Ms. Richardson, can you talk about the exceptions or exemptions, I should say, that the state does have to increase the 2% levy, and what that was? And then for Ms. Permelli, if you could just talk about what the ESSER funds, what kind of programs the state wanted those to be utilized for, and how they'll impact our district without them?
Sure. So I'll just answer first. So the ESSER funds, the COVID money, there were required uses for that money, some of which was, in the beginning, that money was, always throughout the process for things that could help keep kids safe from the pandemic. Cleaning products. At the very beginning of the pandemic, we had shields on the elementary students' desks. So some of those equipment things, we had defoggers to go in and spray the classrooms and the desks and the knobs after students were done for the day. So purchasing those types of things, were allowable uses. Also allowable uses are for mental health concerns. We put some of that to expanding services for students. For example, YMCA has counseling services that come into our school. And so this is for those students who might need additional counseling besides the counseling they get within the school from our current counselors. So those were the types of things that we invested in there. The other thing, obviously, is academic growth and how to help close gap. So we use that to purchase additional resources to help our students and our teachers. Some of the, we sent home during the pandemic some books to students in the classroom in elementary school. So those types of things is how we use that money to be creative to help address those things we were experiencing in the school district. We tried to be very careful not to put too many staff into that money because, again, once that money dries up, what are you doing to fund that? So we were very careful not to do that. There were some things we did. We did invest in having an additional guidance counselor. And we were hopeful that we'd be able to keep that guidance counselor, and we can continue to fight for those things. So by having this loss of now the ESSER funds being used up and now the state aid cut, you worry about, I had mentioned earlier, the S2 cuts when they first came into play, times were different. The first few years were different. We're now coming off of a pandemic. And how do you continue those cuts when everybody knows the importance of mental health, helping our students get back into the swing of school, the importance of extracurriculars and connecting students to their school, let alone the achievement gaps that we want to close? How can we be cutting school districts when we still have all of this need and great change in education in front of us that did not exist before the pandemic?
Other districts still receiving those ESSER funds? Like how was there a cap for each district to receive that, or?
Each district got a certain number, a certain dollar figure, and they had, depending on which bucket of money it was, 2 years, 3 years to use it. So by the end of next year, it all has to be used.
It wasn't like Jackson got this, like it wasn't like state aid, correct? Like it wasn't saying that you could only get 6,000 or you could get 8,000.
Yes, it was.
Oh, it was? Okay.
You were assigned a dollar figure, and they were not all the same.
Okay.
I think that's where you're getting to. Okay. Okay. Ms. Richardson, did you want to answer the next question?
The only 2 ways I know to increase the tax levy. First of all, when we do our budget application to the Department of Ed, there are formulas in there that if your certain expenses, like your health benefits, go up a certain degree, you're able to choose to waive the tax levy and go above. That is allowed when your health benefits go higher. There's 2 other ones, but we never meet those other 2. Years ago, we did meet the health benefit ones, and the board supported increasing the tax levy for those purposes. That is one way, and the other way is to put a special question before the township and say to the voters of Jackson that, do you want this? We're proposing to you that you want this. And like we did a couple of years ago, we did it for security, adding security to our elementary schools. And the voters voted for it and said, yes, they want that. So that increases in our tax levy permanently to keep the elementary school security guys at that, persons, I should say, at the elementary level.
So our health benefits didn't obviously go up?
Our health benefits are not going up significantly, and not like the state of New Jersey's health benefits have gone up. And therefore, we probably won't, we haven't done the actual Department of Ed budget application, but I'm certain we will not qualify for it this year.
And that, by the way, is by being wise and
Very wise.
making good choices so that we didn't get to those large increases of health benefits. Dr. Osmond?
Thanks. Okay, so, everybody knows that the last few years, the budget's been bad, right? More cuts than we thought. And a lot of the ways you were able to keep programming or bring certain programming in, keep teachers, whatever it may be, came from grants, right? Some form of a grant. But then I noticed that we don't have a grant writer here. Has the district, have you guys compared districts that have invested in expert grant writers, where that is their job, and compared them to I know that the teachers are doing it here and your supervisors are doing it here. Who's winning more of these grants? The people who have a grant writer or the people who are doing it themselves? Because when you have to prioritize, what's staying, what's going, where you're moving this money, did we ever look into a grant writer? Because the state is almost saying, we want you to they're encouraging finding these Band-Aid solutions, right? So we can't depend on the state saying, okay, now all your problems are done, here's the money that we're gonna give you. So just thinking a little bit outside the box, would a grant writer and being able to collect more grants because they're maybe more successful at winning them, be something to look at, or have you looked at that already, and is it kind of even having a grant writer or having your own teachers do it?
Well, we did have a grant writer at one point. We lost that years ago. I would say I have not done a comparison recently. I would assume that if you have a grant writer, somebody's sole job to research and seek and apply, you're probably going to receive more grants. We do have currently an energy specialist, Mr. Blair. You've seen him report before to the board. He has done a lot of grant writing in the energy field. The sustainable grants and all of that has brought in a lot of money for us and continues to. But I would say if I were, a guessing woman, yeah, if you had a grant writer, you'd probably be able to bring in more opportunities. So it's something to consider.
Can I just ask more for clarification for the public, right? I know the answer to this because I've already asked the question, but Michelle, this might go to you, I think. So you were saying, like, with special questions. Can you explain why that is risky for a district to put special questions on a ballot?
It's risky mostly because it has the opportunity of being voted down. And the way the state law reads is that if the township votes it down, let's say we put in, football in there. Football's on there. We will have football if you vote for this. If the town votes no, that means we cannot have football until we at some time later put that on the ballot again. But in the meantime, there's no football. So that is a risk, and we are well aware that it is a serious risk to deal with.
There are also a lot of rules and regs to a special question. You cannot put anything that is considered a thorough and efficient, what I referred to before as T&E, on a special question. And you also have to be able to put something that you feel is expanding your program and not necessarily something that you've always paid for. So it's very tricky. It needs to get approved by the county before you can even go that way. The only positive, if there's a positive out of that, is that if it does pass, then it does, as Ms. Richardson said, changes permanently that tax increase year after year instead of a one and done kind of money scenario. Are there any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. I'll move back to my seat and finish. So, to conclude my report, I cannot end on that note. I need to end on a note that celebrates the wonderful things that happen in this district. It is a stellar district. I have said it time and time again. I have been in other places. We do incredible things for students, and our staff is amazing. And I need to highlight just a couple of those staff members right now. Jean Seiner, a counselor at Memorial. Counselor of the Year for Ocean County, just announced. Congratulations, Jean. At McAuliffe, Robin Linke, Secretary. She is the Ocean County Education Specialist of the Year, just announced today. There's many wonderful things going on, and you're going to see some emails coming out soon just highlighting some of the great things that are done here. Again, a staff member at Elms, our custodian Doreen Merritt. She is a national finalist, top 10 in Custodian of the Year. So we are going to be putting out information about voting for her. So please make sure you vote. Incredible. Doreen she's known as Miss Doreen in school. She's amazing, huge part of our community here. So please make sure you vote for her. Again, stellar staff. Again, many wonderful things to share. I just want to share a couple of things that I was blessed to be able to do recently. The Read Across America, what incredible things we do in each of our schools. I was fortunate enough to read to a 4th grade class. I didn't want to leave. It was wonderful. The students were great. I had so much fun. They were so engaged. And we read A Bad Case of the Stripes, if you happen to know that book. It's one of my favorites. I also was fortunate enough to be invited to GETS to judge their door decorating contest, again for Read Across America. Students and teachers worked collaboratively together to do research on somebody important that they felt was important and made a contribution to the world, and they decorated their door so that it provided an educational experience. So when you walked by, you got to learn about this, and they got to be creative, artsy, and incorporate it into learning. Phenomenal. It was wonderful. And then what I was really excited about here at Memorial, working with Mr. Schickling's architectural class, and Roman, a shout out to you. He's the student I'm working with who's designing my dream home for me. It's so exciting to be able to do that and get to work with the students. What a great project. Authentic learning for the students. So that's just a sampling. I needed to end on such a positive note of the great things that happen in our district. With that, I conclude my very long superintendent's report tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Permilli. Now we'll review the standing committee reports for those committees that met. Budget and Finance, as you know, met. I'm not going to review anything more. I think Mrs. Permilli covered it very well in her superintendent's report. Transportation is chaired by Ms. Barakis. Ms. Barakis, would you like to report?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good evening. So the Transportation Committee met on February 27th. In attendance was myself, Ms. Cass, and Mr. Palmieri. So the business discussed, Mr. Soto, the Director of Transportation, gave a presentation on the following. The cul-de-sac update. The committee discussed the various cul-de-sacs and the survey of transportation supervisors. Number 2, the school times for September 2023, which was communicated to the public. The committee was told that the school time change would be rolling out this week, which it was. Non-public status. The committee was informed of ongoing meetings and correspondence with our non-public community and school administrators and the timeline put out for bidding of routes for the 2023-2024 school year. Courtesy busing in Jackson. Mr. Soto explained what is courtesy busing and how it affects students in Jackson. And also we have asked that Mr. Soto provide us a list of the cul-de-sac stops that are also courtesy bus stops as requested. And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Barakis. The district also has ad hoc committees that meet as needed. They will report out only when they meet. And this month we had state and county school board representative, which the chairperson is Ms. Rivera. Ms. Rivera, would you report?
The Ocean County School Board Association back in person to host its annual 8th grade dialogue on Wednesday, March 29th at 5:45 at Brick Memorial High School.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera. JEA negotiations. The board committee has begun negotiations. Nothing further to report. The next meeting is scheduled for March 27th. I need a motion for approval of policy and regulations, second reading, adoption.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Gardella?
Yes.
Mr. McCarron?
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
And Mr. Palmieri?
Yes. I need a motion for approval of the minutes.
Motion.
Second.
The closed session meeting, February 15, 2023, and the official board meeting, February 15, 2023, business meeting. Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Gardella?
Yes.
Mr. McCarron?
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
And Mr. Palmieri?
Yes. I need a motion for approval of the bill list.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Gardella? We're on the bill list.
Yes.
Mr. McCarron?
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
And Mr. Palmieri?
Yes. I need a motion to open the public forum on agenda items only. We will hold another public forum during this meeting for other questions. This public forum will be for questions on the agenda only.
Motion.
Second.
Please sign in and state your name and whether or not you are a Jackson resident. Each person is allowed a maximum of 5 minutes to speak. No person may speak more than once on the topic until others have been heard. Okay. Seeing no one come forward, I need a motion to close public forum.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to move finance.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Gardella?
Sorry, I'm getting a tutorial. So motion number 4 in finance, I agree that it's a tentative budget, and I do not agree necessarily to all the items on the budget.
Mr. Zittimer, I'm not sure how to record that.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Ms. Richardson.
I'm not sure how to record that, Mr.
That was a yes vote with the caveat
Okay.
that she wasn't necessarily agreeing to all the specific line items with the understanding that it's simply
Okay.
a tentative budget, not a final budget at this point. Is that correct?
Yes. Thank you, Ms.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. McCarron?
Yes, also acknowledging it's a tentative budget.
Okay. Mrs. Barocas?
I approve the tentative budget, however, not the line items as is.
We're also asking for the entire finance area.
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Osmond?
Yes, as far as the budget goes, the tentative budget, we have to move this forward so that things could start moving. So saying yes with the understanding that the numbers may change in value and category.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
The same, I approve the tentative, but not the line items.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes, I approve the tentative, but we do know we have a lot of work to do, and we will be continuing to do so. I need a motion to move facilities.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Gardella?
Yes.
Mr. McCarron?
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
And Mr. Palmieri?
Yes. I need a motion to move programs.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Gardella?
Yes.
Mr. McCarron?
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
And Mr. Palmieri?
Yes. I need a motion to move students.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Gardella?
Yes.
Mr. McCarron?
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
And Mr. Palmieri?
Yes. I need a motion to move personnel.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Gardella?
Yes to everything, abstain on 11F.
Mr. McCarron?
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas?
I'll abstain from 3A and 13C, and yes to everything else.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
And Mr. Palmieri?
Yes. I need a motion to open public forum on any topic pertaining to the Board of Education.
Motion.
I need a second motion.
Second.
All in favor? Please sign in and state your name and whether or not you are a Jackson resident. Each person is allowed a maximum of 5 minutes to speak. No person may speak more than once on the topic until all others have been heard.
Good evening. Lisa Crate, President of the Jackson Education Association. I brought my notes this time so I could make sure I remember everything. The first thing is I want to address some of the things that Ms. Parmili spoke about regarding the fiscal cliff and where we're at, and I know that you addressed the issue of Rosenauer School and that everything is on the table with regard to the possibility of that being sold, and we appreciate that you spoke about that. I just want to, I think, reiterate what you're saying, but to also speak for my members. When, you know, I've been in this district for 30 years, so this topic has come up on numerous occasions throughout my career, and I think that the idea of selling the school, while, as you stated, it gives you a lump sum in the moment to fix a singular problem, it really does just kick the can down the road. It doesn't really help us in the future because we don't know what our enrollment will be in the future, and we've just lost a building and housing for those students, and that is really one of the last bastions of a community school in our district, where it's truly walkers and families coming to that school every day. So we would, of course, encourage you to review all other options and look at everything else on the table, but continue to work to make sure that that school remains part of our district. The second thing that I want to bring up is you talked about grants coming into the district, and I can't help but remind everyone again that the JEA has worked very hard this year to get all of the grant money that we possibly could through our NJEA Pride in Public Education grants, and we totaled somewhere just around $68,000 for our members that brought programs into our schools for our families and children. So we're very proud of that, and we will continue to do that into next year as well. The third thing that I wanted to bring up is that we are working to continue to partner with our members and with you as the Board of Education and with our families in the district and our administrators to continue to try to bring light to the situation that S2 has really brought to our district. The impact that it is having on our students, their families, our schools, and my members, because through all of this, you talk about we've lost 151 staff members. The load that my members are carrying right now to make up that gap of people that are no longer working in this district is almost unbearable for some people. And we come to work every day, we work with our students, we continue to care for them, and it's almost crippling sometimes the amount of extra work that has to be done, that if we look back prior to S2, we had more time for our students. Now there's more students in each class and more work that needs to be done. So we are looking to continue to bring light to the S2 issue, and one of the things that we will be doing is we are going to be doing a postcard campaign that we will invite not only our members to do on a day, but we'll be inviting in families to fill out postcards with us. If the Board of Ed would like to stop in that day to fill out some postcards as well, we'll have it open to everyone to come in, families, members, whoever, children, if they want to fill out a postcard, and then those postcards will go to our representatives. So we're kind of hoping for a miracle on 34th, and we can really bring in bags of letters to really maybe bring more attention to, it's not just the administrators that are asking for help, it is also our members and families and children in our district. So once we have those details worked out, we'll share that with you, and we hope that we can share that with families around the district, and then we'll make sure that we get that going for you. So thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Amanda Mason, and I am the music teacher at Sylvia Rosenauer Elementary School. I want to sincerely thank you, the members of the Jackson Board of Education, for supporting the arts in our district. On February 9th, I had the privilege to direct our 5th grade Roadrunners in our production of Aladdin Kids at Jackson Liberty High School. Our students worked so hard to pull off what was, for most of them, the first time they had ever been on stage. Only one of our students had done theater before, and she did an incredible job as Jeannie. I was honored to accept my position for this school year, knowing that I would be responsible for upholding Rosenauer's rich history of theatrical productions. This tradition was easily upheld due to the character, work ethic, and commitment of the students and staff at our tiny school with a whole lot of heart. I must also acknowledge the Jackson Education Association. Since our show was a Pride event, we received funding for the t-shirts the students wore for the performance, the one you see me wearing now. The students did not have to worry about being able to pay for the shirts. The theater experience that Rosenauer provides for our community is invaluable in more ways than one. It gives our students their first experience on the high school stage. It gives our families the opportunity to witness that first small glimpse of the potential in their children. Theater can create a sense of community that runs deep and lasts for generations. As one of the humanities, theater teaches our students about what it means to be human. The Roadrunners of today and tomorrow are so lucky to be a part of something that will live on in our hearts forever. Lastly, I want to share this with you. This is a tiny little genie lamp that my parents gave to me in lieu of flowers after the performance. I proudly display this on my desk to honor the first generation of Roadrunner thespians that I had the privilege of teaching. Thank you for allowing me to share my testimony.
Quick question. I'm wondering, could we rub that lamp and make a wish for $12 million?
Andrea Frangella. I'm a parent at Rosenauer, and I would regret coming here and not coming up here to speak to all of you. So I first want to thank you for taking everything into account. I've been in that school for 8 years. I have 1 more year to go. I pour my heart into everything we do in that building. We're Rosenauer, we're small, we're mighty. You know that, you've been in our building. You know, I ask you to think of every other possible solution that you could come up with before you close that building, because it means so much to me and so much to so many of them over there and those that couldn't be here. I'm sorry, I get emotional. I just really hope, and I appreciate everything you do, just please consider every other option before you shut that door. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing no one come forward? Oh, he's coming forward.
Good evening. This is my first school board meeting. I have a son who's filming here tonight, and I had asked him when was the next meeting he'd like to come. Is it my understanding that the state aid in total is increased by 8% or over 8% this year to the state in total? By over 8%, correct?
Several hundred million. I don't know the percentage, but yes.
Understood. I've just started to go down the rabbit hole of the budget and S2, how it came about, how we got here. I will say, having 2 kids in the Jackson School District and having lived in other communities where there weren't great school districts, I can say that a great bellwether of a successful community is the students that it produces. And Jackson should be very proud of the students that we produce. I had the opportunity to go to a dance recently at Switlick with my daughter and was so moved. I made a couple of social posts the next day, but just the amount of parents that are so concerned and involved and loving community. Keep that up. Don't let the budget cuts ruin that. We'll find a way.
Hello. My name is Rosario Herrero. I have been in Jackson for over 50 years. Excuse me. I no longer have kids in the district, but I've been in Brookwood 1 for all that time. Do I have to start from the beginning? Okay. My name is Rosario Herrero, and I've been in Jackson for 53 years, all of them in Brookwood 1. I no longer have kids in the school, as you can imagine. But all of my kids attended Rosenauer. It's very hard for me. I'm so sorry. It's very hard for me to see it go down. I think that when creative minds put their hands together, they can come up with a creative way to get around problems. You could possibly ask for parent volunteers. I would do it. Send notices to all the parents in the whole Jackson school district. Maybe that would be just one way, not the only one. I don't know what has happened with the lottery, but it was supposed to help with education. Whatever happened with that? You know, you could have, I don't know, centers of artistic places in there, you know, I don't know. But I would be willing to help out and volunteer. I do have a very complicated life, but I would apportion a certain amount of time every week. But I would do it knowing that it could save the school. I just have nostalgia, and it's very important that something like that continue on. It could even serve as a center, if you need to, for everybody, all the kids, public and private. But please, I ask you not to close it down, sell it, or whatever, like somebody else said before. You could sell it, and you can get a certain amount of money one time. But what happens after? Is we cannot make this governor give us more money. So if that's going to be the way, then we, the citizens, have to help out to compensate for the difference. So again, I ask you to please, consider a few of these very simplistic suggestions, and I support everybody else here who has spoken on behalf of the school. Thank you very much for listening.
Good evening, Amy Howells. I am a parent of a Rosenauer and a McCullough student, sit on the PTA for Rosenauer. So I just wanted to get up real quick. I totally respect, leaving no stone unturned, doing your due diligence, considering all options. But as a parent of a student there, she's only there for one more year, I implore you to keep that school open. When my first, who is now McCullough's, was getting ready to go to Rosenauer, I remember I went to the orientation and I walked through the building. Mind you, this is the same school my husband went to. He's a lifelong resident of Jackson, been here 53 years, went to Rosenauer. So I show up for this orientation, And I remember leaving going, wow, it's such a small little building. And I went in the bathroom when I was there, and I was like, wow, the sinks are really old. And I was feeling dejected, like, why can't my kid go to that brand new big Crawford, right? And I talked to a couple of people who already had kids in the building, and they're like, don't worry about it, it's not important. The school's amazing. And very, very quickly did I find out that it was true. It didn't matter that the sink was old or that the building was small. That made it better, actually. The staff at that school is amazing. The experiences my children have had at that school are amazing. I can't walk in that building and not say hi to like everybody, because everyone is so welcoming, so friendly. The experiences that they have enriched my student or my kids with as students there, phenomenal. I can just go on about every single teacher there, every single staff member. A truly phenomenal building. And I would hate to see that gone. We are small, but we are mighty. We do amazing things in that building, and there are many years left in that building that can still continue. I mean, she just had her first theatrical performance. She needs many, many more, and I want to see all of the kids continue to be able to use that school, even when my kids are off at Liberty or maybe college. You know, we want to see this continue in this community. So I implore you to please consider not closing that school. I get that you need to go through every avenue, explore all the options, do that. That makes sense. That's fair. But at the end of the day, do what you need to do to keep that school open. Thank you.
I just wanted to comment that I too think it's a phenomenal school and a very quaint school and has great positive energy.
If I can ask, if you're a Rosenauer parent, raise your hand, or a previous Rosenauer parent, raise. As many of you know, so am I. Three have gone through or going through, and I still have time in that school. I know how important it is. I'm invested. This whole board is invested. And I can tell you, your board president and every board member, your superintendent, and the entire staff here is going to fight hard to make that not happen and those doors stay open. I want to see my daughter Olivia graduate from there. So we will continue to fight. But just know, you've seen the numbers. It's not impossible, but it's going to be hard. But together we will get through it. As a unified town, sticking together. So we have a lot of fight left in us, and so do you. So let's keep going. And you have our word. We're going to try our hardest, and we're going to do the best we can to get a budget where we keep those doors open. Any other additional questions, comments? Seeing no one come forward, I need a motion to close public forum.
Motion.
All in favor?
Second.
Nope. Oh, second. All in favor?
Aye.
At this time, we're going to do board comments, starting with Dr. Osmond.
So first I want to say that I did go to the Liberty production of Legally Blonde, and the kids over there did an amazing job. I did not have an opportunity to see SpongeBob. My son had some things going on, so I wasn't able to do that. But I grew up in Jackson, and since I was in school, these theater programs and music programs have been amazing. It's amazing what these kids could do. So I really did enjoy that, and congratulations to all the kids who were involved in that, and faculty and staff. On a different note, today's news was not great, right? This is sad news. We know that these are kind of desperate times, and we have to be very creative. But I think it's also an opportunity to remind people why it's so important when people are running for BOE to go out and vote, when it's a governor going out and voting, because the people who sit up here and who represent you have such a major impact in our kids and our day-to-day. So it's just a good reminder of that as well. So thank you all for coming out tonight, and I hope that in coming meetings we have brighter news to share.
Ms. Gardella?
I just also wanted to send my condolences to Sue McGinley's family. She was always looking to help others, whether it was students or staff, and she really was a wonderful woman, and I know she'll be sorely missed. I didn't know that anybody else noticed the Elms Custodian of the Year award for Cintas, and I wanted to just wish good luck to Miss Doreen Merritt. And in reading the agenda items, I know there's so much in there, and something that just popped out to me. I wanted to highlight Miss, and I'm sorry if I say your name wrong, Valgente and Miss Hay, for the grant that they got from McAuliffe for repurposing thrift clothes. Super amazing. I wish that I lived on the McAuliffe side for my kids to participate, because that's right up their alley. So kudos for being creative and helping to improve the school experience for students. I want to just thank my fellow board members for saying yes to an advocacy and community outreach committee. I'm super excited to get together with a team and really look to forge forward with some of the concerns that we have. And last, I look forward to seeing more community members at our future Board of Education meetings. This was great, and if we could keep it up and kind of fill some more seats, it would be tremendous, and I appreciate everybody's support here tonight.
Mr. McCarron?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I was able to make it out to both high school productions, SpongeBob and Legally Blonde. Both were amazing shows, very talented for everybody who took part in those productions. I know that Getz has Wizard of Oz coming up as well. I'm looking forward to seeing that show. March 31st, April 1st, and April 2nd is the show dates. Just wanted to thank everybody on the board and Ms. Permilli for their hard work with the budget. Obviously, we have a lot to take on right now, but we will get through it, and I appreciate Ms. Permilli's hard work around the clock to see this through. Thank you.
Ms. Barakis?
Yes. Hi, everyone. So it was a very busy month for me. I had the opportunity to go to Elms and do Read Across America to, I'm going to mess this up, Mrs. Cianccio's class, her second grade class. It was just such a great experience. I sat on the floor and got to just hang out with them, and it was just a great experience. And I read, for those of you that are interested, Dragons Love Tacos, and I'm Not Scared, You're Scared by Seth Meyers. I also had the opportunity, and I wrote about it on Facebook, but I'll read what I wrote. I had the pleasure of seeing our SpongeBob musical and Legally Blonde. And of course, our children are amazing in all of these plays. The talent of both of these shows really is a testament to the students themselves and the programs we have in our schools. When I watch the plays, I think to myself, how many different programs are touched throughout the show? It runs the gamut from drama, dance, art, digital media, band, our tech crew, athletics, and so much more. These shows are brought to life when all of these components are brought together to create magic. Another reason why it's important to keep the arts and athletics in our schools. So again, thank you to Mrs. Permilli for going over and beyond, out of the scope of your job, fighting for our children and for our schools. Thank you, everyone.
Rivera.
I want to thank everyone for coming out and watching live stream, your presentations, your inputs and comments. I took part in Read Across America at Elms. I want to thank you, Ms. Permilli, and staff for your dedication and hard work. Everyone have a great and safe evening.
Ms. Cass?
Yeah, I want to go to the good stuff too. So I know that we have a lot of congratulations with our sports and academic teams. I know DECA did really well. We had a wrestling coach who was named Region 6 Coach of the Year. Mr. Witt Stadley, I don't want to mispronounce that, so I hope I got that right. But as the boys were saying, I mean, our bowling's teams, our girls wrestling team is #1 in the state. I mean, that's amazing. We had the boys wrestling did well too. The girls basketball team won their state championship. I don't want to forget anybody, but you all heard the list before. We have a lot of great accomplishments from our secretary, our custodian, who could, for the county. I mean, so a lot of amazing things are going on. All those people really deserve congratulations and our support. I was also able to attend both high school plays. Actually, Mrs. Barakis and I went together, and Mrs. Osmond, so we had a really good time. And as always, the shows are just fantastic. The talent always blows me away. I also attended the Wizards basketball fundraiser for Switlick, which that's always a fun night, and I really don't know who had the bigger smiles, the parents or the kids. It's a lot of fun, and I enjoy watching the teachers play. So that's a good time. I also got to read at Elms for Read Across America. I read Actual Size to a second grade class, and we had a great time. So the book really generates a lot of great conversation and just all the animals and everything in the book, so that was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed seeing their smiles. And the only other thing that I want to point out on the budget, because I know a lot of people, and S2 is, obviously we lost over 21 million. And I know on the one slide, like it showed our aid in lieu and our non-public transportation, but I'm not sure that people realize, like, the narrative out in the public is that it's 2% of our overall budget, and actually it's 3.2. But the bigger picture is it's 26.2% of our entire transportation budget. So that's over a quarter. There are not very many towns aside from Lakewood that have that cost on their budget line. So, and no one wants to listen to us or hear us. So I just think it's important to point that out. It is a big number, and it's growing. That number is not stationary, and our non-public students are more than half of our public students. Like there's 4,600, I believe, at this point. So, and we have 7,200, public students. So there definitely is an imbalance there. And the only other thing I'd like to say is I'd really like to invite the governor to come here and see what our district has to offer our students, and what they stand to lose.
Thank you, Mrs. Cass. I want everyone to know who's here and who's watching that any decision that the Board of Education makes is being made with the best intentions of the students in mind. You've seen it. $21 million has been cut. 50% of our state aid in 6 years has been cut. The funding formula is broken because the governor still considers us overfunded. All we can do is continue to advocate, because the only one that can change this is the governor. He has $10 billion in surplus. He can fund every S2 school with a very small percentage of that. So we're asking him, Mr. Governor, please, fund your schools. You are affecting an entire generation of our youth. And if you have to go after anyone, go after us, but not our kids. So fund our schools. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Can I add one more thing before you close the meeting out? So just real quickly, so I know a lot of you came out here today and you said, if there's any way that we can help, we would like to help. So I'm going to task you with something that I think is really important. Talk to your friends and talk to people in this town to watch the YouTube video of the presentations tonight, because everything is still on the table. And that means if a special question comes for you to vote on it, people have to understand. They have to be educated, because for years and years they've heard, right? The narrative has been schools don't have money, schools don't have money, schools don't have money, yet schools still trucked on just fine, right? We didn't really feel it the way that we're going to feel it with this cut. And so I think that we all have a responsibility, since you came here tonight, to share the message and try to help educate people, not through rumor, but through, what Ms. Permelli said and watching the presentation today. So I think that's really the first thing that, I know a lot of you said, what can we do? We'll volunteer. That's the first thing that we could do. We could work as a community to get as many people educated as possible, so that if this question does make it to the ballot, people understand we got to vote it through, because otherwise these things are gone, right? Because there's rules that go along with those questions, which is a little scary, putting things on ballots for that reason. Okay, so I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
And please keep coming to the meetings. It's important that you get the correct information so you can disseminate that information to our community. We want you to have the right information. We don't want you to have incorrect information. So come out, invite more people to come out, or watch it from home if you can't make it. And I just want to concur with several of my fellow board members. Ms. Permilli works like 24/7. I can contest to that. I've spoken with Ms. Permilli 8, 9 o'clock in the evening over things, especially this budget. Weekends, so thank you. What you do for this district may not always be seen publicly, but it is felt, and we want to thank you for that. So with that, oh, sure.
I want to thank you for that. We care deeply about students, 33-year educator, but I need to also comment that my team works just as hard. Everyone on my team, and the administrative group, my central office team, my assistant, we all work really hard and care about kids, and we feel the same way you all do.
Absolutely. Thank you. I need a motion to adjourn
Motion.
Second.
by acclamation. Aye.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.